Welcome to the WalaWay. This is Imran Nanlowala, and I'm here again with my good and dear friend, Dr. Ronnie Doss, doctor of.
Clinical psychology.
So we're going to be talking about psychology today?
Nah.
What are we talking about today?
I say let's talk about Michael Jordan's legacy in today's social media age.
You're going to have to define that a little bit more. What do you mean by his legacy?
Well,
for me, his legacy is intact. It doesn't matter what the age is.
yeah, well, I mean, we often talk about, and especially us from Chicago, it's usually no debate about Michael Jordan being the greatest player of all time. But it got me thinking, would he be considered the greatest of all time if he played in this era today of social media? Think about who influenced most of the media and the conversations, these morning shows, these debate shows, these guys, the Skip Baylesses, Stephen A's of the world. They really be dictating these guys' legacy. So I think if we, look at it in that stance, I think we will see Michael Jordan in a very different light.
So you mentioned Skip Bayless. You mean the GOAT of sports commentating, right? I mean, he's the GOAT, man.
I mean, he probably can make that claim.
You gotta bring the evidence that he's not the GOAT.
He can make that claim. He had his show Cold Pizza, turned the first take, got recruited. I mean, now he's spun up like seems like every other show now on TV is a copy of what he did. So then you can make that claim. But I think it's an interesting topic because if you look at the four major American sports, the guys that are considered the best, you look at, they didn't really have much off the field drama or court or whatever, ice, that we talk about. And, I feel like Mike had a lot of stuff going on that wasn't talked about because of the era. Like, it was protected information. Today, all these things would have been out and they would have been looked at much differently.
But here's the thing. I mean, it's easy to kind of imagine what a player would have looked like in a previous generation, but to project a past player on the current times is a bit difficult. And look, with Michael Jordan, are we going to assume that he is fundamentally the same person? Because Michael doesn't seem like the type of person who would care what people on social media would say. But however, if he grew up in this age, maybe he would have a more fragile persona or fragile ego. It's possible.
Yeah.
But if we were to take him from a time machine and put him in today's game, I think he had that itch, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same kind of itch that maybe Kobe Bryant has,
mm-hmm.
the same type of itch to an extent that Tim Duncan has, even Manu Ginobili, guys who just want to compete, guys who just want to win. He had his share of scandals per se, right?
Yeah.
Gambling.
A lot.
Right. And
that wasn't even brought to light.
Well, what were some of the ones that were brought to light?
Well, I think like the gambling became a little bit known to people, but the extent that was insinuated, I mean, the things that he did like on his team, the privileges that he had. If you look at the things that were talked about in the Jordan rules, how he had the whole thing with Cartwright about not giving him the ball. Cartwright, made some threatening remarks to him. Those kind of things that would have got out, or who he didn't want to play with, even the affairs in the personal life. And I think Jordan cared a lot about his image. I think that's why he never touched on social issues when people kind of demanded him to do that. And I think because of that, I think that would also have a bigger impact on him, especially when you look at what's going on today in the social media. I think he can still be the same great player. I'm not talking about what's on the court, but I think it shapes the way we look at him differently. That's, for example, again, we look at the other just American major sports. You think of boxing, you think of the greatest is Muhammad Ali. But Muhammad Ali also has several losses. But what he stood for, like, he loved the media. Him and Howard Cosell, they had that great relationship. So he was looked at favorably. Like, for a minute, he was the most hated person in the world when he took his stands. But then people saw that, oh, you know what, this guy was right. And then he became beloved. And I think now, like, people just really appreciated him, but he was always fun to the media, whereas, Jordan also was protected in that relationship because of that, which would have been a much different story. You look at Floyd Mayweather, on the other hand, who the media doesn't like, but, boxing aficionados kind of say, like, yeah, this guy's like the greatest defensive, sure. And everything like that. But because of his perspective and how the media looks at him, he's never in that conversation. Like, people don't actually give him that credit. The same thing with Kareem. That's why he was cut off. Like, why isn't Kareem, more just renowned as the greatest of all time because he didn't have that relationship with the media. Like he shunned a lot of the white media in that era.
Well, I think it's complicated, right? I mean, Kareem, he played, I think, into the 80s, correct?
Yeah.
But in the 80s, was that his end? Did he play into the 90s? I don't think
No,
so, right?
no. He stopped in the 80s.
So I think he was really good in the 70s. I think the era had something to do with his what regard he's being held in, and also, like you mentioned, because the media was predominantly white, and if you have a standoffish black man, right, you're going to be perceived in a certain way.
Yep.
I think one way or the other, this conversation is going to get to LeBron versus Michael.
Is that even a conversation these days?
Well, not in terms of basketball, because that's pretty clear cut.
Okay.
Let me check something, man. It sounds really weird. Hello. It sounds really weird. Why does this sound so... Hi, why does this sound so weird? Why does this sound so weird? Hello. I don't know, it sounds really weird to me. Mine does. Yours sounds good. Well, I think what I want to touch upon is you mentioned his persona and him being protected and how that would have affected him. Look, I think the reality is, go back to even when his father was killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
He took some time away from the game.
Yeah.
He chose to follow or do what he wanted to pursue, his former dreams. Some people said that he left because he didn't want to play the Rockets. I tend not to believe that at all.
I don't believe
it's hard
that.
to believe.
They did used to give it to us, in those first couple of years, but...
Well, they could have given it to us in 96, 97, and 98, but they didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, that first team was good. That second team I didn't think was that good.
Right. But the point being, he came back, and when he came back, they dominated, right?
Yeah.
When did they go on their 72-run season?
Yeah, same year. The following year after that second Rockets championship.
So when he came back. So obviously, even when it was off-court drama or off-court situations that would have probably derailed the career of any other player, Michael not only continued to play, he excelled.
Yeah.
Now let's look at when you mentioned something very early on in the interview about him not kind of having the same personality as an activist would, right? So maybe who are we talking about? Like maybe even a Magic Johnson, a LeBron to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think LeBron does a really good job on that in today's era. I think that's huge.
So, look, the way I look at it is I think MJ probably wasn't those things because he was a little bit conscious of his business image.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
And I think in the 90s, here's a way social media would have helped him, right? Social media probably would have took his business even to a higher extent. But because you still kind of had the traditional business model of how you would make it, and I mean, at that time in the 90s, how many African Americans did we have as game changers, as paradigm shifters, people who were larger than life? Michael was that.
Yeah.
Irregardless of what country, what industry he went to. Think about Space Jam.
Yeah.
Think about the Olympics in Spain. Think about all these different things. So I think he was very conscious of his status and what he could accomplish. So I don't blame him for not getting more involved. I think even recently, I don't know when it was the events in Charlottesville or one of these famous incidences, he came out with a
and
letter.
it was the first time, and it wasn't much that he said, but it was the first time he said something. And I think that's why it's very important that I think he'd have been looked at differently, because you think about the temperature and the climate of the U.S. in those early 90s championship days where you had the Rodney King and the riots out there in L.A., you had the O.J. trial. I mean, it was like a racial explosion as well going on. And Mike was able to sit that out on the sidelines, being the significant, stature of a person that he was. And he would have had to answer questions. And you think about a lot of the other vices. Look what people are getting dropped for by their sponsors now. I don't know if everybody really remember, but Jordan contracts originally was nothing. Like it was,
right.
He wasn't getting paid anything from the Bulls, but he was making so much money off the court. Now you got to think of, adultery and other things like that Nike dropped Tiger Woods and things for, kind of derailed the Kobe thing like that. He had that in gambling. So if Nike and Gatorade and other things are starting to go out of the window, and we know how vengeful Mike can be, and is he now not apologetic because of that? Does he say things that could have got him in even more trouble in the demand? So I just think that we would be looking at this person in a much different light if we had all the things out and in this social media age that we have today.
I agree. I agree. But I think that Mike is such a larger than life personality. And I think that he is so smart in a lot of ways and so competitive that if he did grow up in this era, he would have adjusted, right? He would have adjusted. Maybe he would have kept some of his stuff more secret. Maybe he would have avoided it. It's hard to say. I think, it's such a hard conversation when we have these transgenerational or cross-generational conversations about who's the best or what a person would have been like. But I think because he fundamentally had that hunger, that thirst to be successful in all aspects of life, right? He was competitive in everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably bowling, obviously gambling. That's why he had such a gambling problem because he just can't lose.
Mm-hmm.
I think gambling in this era would have been being successful, and that is you versus yourself.
Yeah.
And I think he would have had enough foresight, enough wisdom, and with the reliance on social media and media in these days, he would have seen others fail.
Yeah.
So I think he would have done it. But it's a hard conversation to have, man.
I say let's look at his career. Let's go down the line and look at his career. I think it'll really be interesting. You take, and I guess here's where some of the LeBron conversation sort of starts and for the most part ends, because again, LeBron's not really in the conversation.
Sure.
But if you look at it, again, Skip Bayless, who you call the GOAT, LeBron, took about 9 years to win his first title?
He came in 2003, and he won his first one in, I think, 2010? No.
12, because they lost to the Mavs in 11, right? So 9 years. Look at the criticism, right? Can't win, the queen, all this talk. People say, he's putting up meaningless stats. He doesn't win. Jordan, 7 years to win?
Sure.
Came in 84 and win 91. In that time, named MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, considered the best player, scoring 60 points, 63, which people, I think, forget the Bulls didn't win that game, just for the record. We were swept in that series, too, I believe. So you think of a lot of the sweeps that Jordan had, exit after exit after exit, early first round exits. What would have been the conversation, year 6, no ring, come up short game 7, conference final against Detroit before breaking through. So let's just take conference finals, another letdown, game 7, Bulls lost, Mike, all his accolades, no championships, all the talk about him, all the points, all the stats. Skip Bayless, today's media. Isn't that got to be the same conversation at that point? This guy's not good. He can't win. Larry Bird is really the best. He's the champ. Magic Johnson is who you really want. He's clutch. He's got all these rings. Why are we talking about this guy? Just like there was Kobe and Duncan still existing in LeBron day. Like, oh, these guys got the rings. They winning. Why are we talking about this other kid who hasn't proven anything?
I mean, it's funny. I mean, okay, it's interesting that you brought up Larry because there seemed to be a consensus amongst Michael's contemporaries, especially at a certain point that he was the new captain. What was that quote that Magic Johnson had?
New sheriff in town.
There's a new sheriff in town, right? And I think, look, when you look at his biography and when you hear other players talking about him, what was one thing that you saw across the board? Players were scared to make him upset.
Yeah.
Players were scared to give him any extra motivation because they knew what was coming. They were going to get the business. The thing about LeBron that I feel is fundamentally different, I don't think Kobe was scared of LeBron.
No. I think it's Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
He wasn't scared of Jordan.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. But I think that a lot of players, while they recognize LeBron's greatness in a lot of ways, I don't think that he put fear into them. Yeah. Right? I think Michael Jordan put fear into people.
Yeah, that's what people say.
Look, man,
you also look at his contemporaries the ones that were good.
You like Michael's or
you look at even Dr. J at Older State. You never heard Dr. J bragging about Michael Jordan because he's like, I was doing this beforehand, and
right.
So that's not impressive to me. Bird and them, they look about how great this guy was, but we're able to smack him down anytime we play them. Even Isaiah, he's a big hater too, so you got to kind of take some of his stuff with a grain of salt or whatever. Right. But he talks a lot about we weren't worried about them, that we can beat them. We know like what he's gonna do. He can get his points or we came out with the whole, getting physical with him. What that narrative would have been. Remember, like, people say, oh, LeBron is soft, or these other people are soft, they can't do that. That's how the Pistons saw Jordan, and they beat him up, and they proved that. And Jordan talked about how I had to really start getting my body ready. So,
yeah, but he did it.
Yeah.
I think the point, look, here's the thing. I don't want to turn this into a LeBron hating session, because there's things that LeBron does which are great.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The way he can make others excel.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he can, his court vision, some of the other things. I think what it boils down to is that competitiveness, the drive, and then in the final few minutes of the game, that taking over, taking the shot. That's what people have always said, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes to. LeBron is not decisive enough. He's very passive.
Even though, like, technically, I think he has, like, more game winners than these guys, but that's just
hey, man, maybe he's got more game winners because he's, his team is in a bad situation because he's not decisive enough. I mean,
yeah, I'm just saying,
Here's the thing. I'm going to read a quote from Jerry Krause. It's funny that we're having this conversation today because I just got sent this today, and then we can kind of steer this into a different direction.
Okay.
So this is from Jerry Krause, former Bulls GM, and I quote, "I'll say this about him," meaning Michael. "He never came to me and asked for other players. He never came to me and asked me to draft a player. He never came to me to ask me to trade for a player. Never once did that happen." And then on the bottom, part of it was that he thought he was so darn good, he thought he could win without them. I'm sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Look, LeBron started off with the Cavs.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. When they went to the finals in 2007 for the first time, he didn't really have much of a supporting cast. I think he had
There's nobody on that team.
He had a Golskis, he had Drew Gooden, he had Eric Snow. I still remember these guys, right? But
were we on that team? We may have been on that team too. Yeah.
I think I was the eighth.
I think I may have got a couple minutes in that. Yeah.
I played in Game 4, I believe, towards the end. I think Louis Alday was passing around the Gatorade or something. So, fine. That argument is there. He didn't have much of a team. He goes to Miami. They lay a dud against the Mavericks. Come on, man.
I can't give that. I have a huge problem with that.
Why?
One, I'm a Dirk fan.
Okay, so am I.
And especially shout out to Jerry Dallas, who's the biggest Dirk fan.
That's going to be edited up.
But I have a big problem with that because I hate, again, this narrative being shaped by the Skip Bayless and people of the world is that LeBron, the biggest superstar meltdown is, I think that's what he says, right? The superstar meltdown we ever seen.
Mark Cuban came out on the show and destroyed him.
Yeah. I think, to me, I hate that being a narrative because everyone says, oh, Miami lost. LeBron specifically lost. Let's not forget that Dwayne Wade was also on that team passing the ball like a hot potato, like it was a bum or something. He didn't want to shoot it. Also, Chris Bosh was on that team and also did nothing, didn't want to shoot the ball. But I think the story of the 2011 championship should really be, and that's the way I look at it, is the Dirk Nowitzki's run, I think, is the greatest, possibly the greatest run I've ever seen of a title. You think of who he beat. He beat Kobe Bryant, sweep, blew them out of the water, all right? That was after the Lakers had just went to 3 straight finals and just won 2 straight. So they were trying to get to their 4th straight and make another 3-peat. Sweep. No one saw that coming. The only one did was Charles Barkley. I remember on TNT, Barkley was talking and he was saying that, the Mavs are going to win this series because Dirk Nowitzki is the best player. And everybody on the set thought he was crazy. They were, what are you talking about? Kobe's on that team. Like, you sound stupid. He's like, Mavs are going to win because Dirk is the best player. Better than Kobe. He just stood his position. Dirk's the best player. They're going to win. There's no way. For one, he's not better than Kobe. They're not going to win this series. Sweep. Eye-opening. Okay, up-and-coming Thunder, who before that just every year just kept advancing further and further. And this is the team that has 3 MVPs, technically, because Harden has his now, Durant has his, Westbrook has his. Those guys, they ready. And I think they may have even had the home court in that round. I think they beat them 4-1. So take out Kobe. You take out 3 MVPs on the Thunder. Granted young, but they were already constantly advancing. They played I think the Lakers tough a couple times, something in the playoffs, getting further and further. So they were there. Blow them out 4-1. They was also predicted to lose that series. They win. Miami, no one gives them a shot. Oh, this is a waste of time they got here. It's going to be easy, especially after game 1, and then they're up game 2 with the Wade 3 in the corner and people celebrating. LeBron punched him in his chest or whatever. Dallas come back to win that game. Next game, game 3, I think it was, they come back, the Heat win. I remember it like very well. The Heat wins. And I remember the narrative of people be like, oh, well, they woke up now. They're not going to play around. They're going to go on and finish this. And Wade and them thought it was all funny. Walking down, I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
Dolph is sick. Yeah,
Yep.
Dirk is sick. The old cough thing. Oh, it's hard to go from 80-something degree weather to 90. I thought it was real funny. And they didn't win another game. So, to me, and there's my boy Jason Kidd was on that team, but he was like 40 basically at that time. Jason Terry, who's your sixth man, little JJ Barea. There's no other real mega star on that team. Tyson Chandler was great for them.
They were kind of like the 04 Pistons or 05 Pistons.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
They relied on teamwork. They had one really good guy.
Yeah, but the Spurs had multiple with Manu and.
Well, I'm talking about a system.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And look, they had Peja.
Mm-hmm.
Peja, former MVP contender. Obviously, he had, I think, multiple back surgeries. He was not the same.
Yeah.
I think they had a group of older, very talented, hungry, veteran guys who played team basketball.
Yeah.
They stuck to the game plan.
Dirk was just phenomenal. His run, he was incredible throughout that whole way.
Right, and I don't discount that. And I'm not blaming LeBron for that entire loss. But see, there's a reason you're talking about Dirk right now.
Yeah.
Dirk came through in the clutch.
Yeah.
He performed at a mega superstar level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Dirk super athletic? No.
No.
Does Dirk jump out of the gym? If you lined up all the players on those teams, he'd probably be at the end of the line in terms of guys who could jump very high. His vertical, his 50-yard dash time.
Yeah.
In terms of
you don't have to when you're 7 feet.
You don't have to, true. But also Dirk is a very smart, very, again, hungry.
Yeah.
Plays with that chip on his shoulder. He's still in the league, right? He's 40?
Yeah, gotta be. I think.
He's about 40.
Yeah,
he's been in the league
be.
since I think 97. So
Yeah.
this is going to be either his 20 or 21st year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got drafted in the same year as Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
So, look, the things that come to my mind off the bat when I talk about LeBron are, yes, look, as of late in the last 3-4 seasons, he's changed as a player.
Oh yeah.
I believe. I think going to Miami probably did him a lot of good. Being around Dwayne Wade and Pat Riley and even Spoelstra and these guys probably did him good.
Mm-hmm.
It was a progression for him to become a true leader.
Yeah.
But the things that still stick to my mind before that didn't really seem like he wanted the ball at the end of the game. And another thing is from a GM or organizational perspective, throwing coaches under at times. I remember last year or the year before, he wanted Tristan Thompson to get a max deal. He wanted to make sure that Tristan got paid, make sure JR got paid.
Big mistakes.
Wanted Kevin Love to stay there, which I like Kevin Love.
I like Love too.
Yeah, his issues led to Kyrie wanting to get out. And then this year you wanted a new roster, so they traded for Crowder. They traded for, who else did they get this year?
They had Wade on that team. Rose was on that team at some point.
But then they traded those guys, and then they got Larry Nance Jr.
Mm-hmm.
They got rid of Crowder. So he got again a new staff, a new supporting crew, and then he bounced, right?
Yeah.
And now he's on the Lakers. And I think, look, if it's true that he's willing to help them rebuild, I'm cool with that. That says a lot to me.
Yeah.
I think this decision, anyways, to go to LA was more than just basketball. I think he is wanting to, and this is what I thought from the beginning, he is wanting to be a successor of Magic Johnson in the sense of basketball to business.
Oh, yeah.
He already has a lot of businesses, right?
Already a lot, yeah.
But Dwayne Wade said it. He went there for his family primarily, which I respect a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Which don't get enough credit.
Yeah, and that's why I say I don't want to turn this into bashing LeBron, because I think he's a really good guy. Never has gotten into any real trouble.
Yeah.
Seems to
Says a lot, been in the spotlight since like 17,
seems to be a family man.
Yeah.
Seems to be really cool that you brought up your boys and you took care of them, and they're your agents and they're part of your confidant. And now even when you wanted to move to LA, you consulted your wife and your sons.
Yeah.
That's really good. What I want to concentrate is on the basketball side. So now he's in LA, right? And you called Kevin Durant, right? And
is that true, though?
It seems true, man, because nobody's really refuted it, and a few people have reported it.
But
and I know we can't.
Who does refute most things, though? Like, these guys don't don't really refute most things. You look at the Drake new album.
The who?
Drake news album.
Who's that now?
Drake new album.
Sorry, I don't.
But he says on the song, he's talking about that because the rumors and the beef thing.
Is he singing or is he talking? Because I don't.
You know how he does.
Yeah,
he does a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But he says on the song, he's like, people say, why let the story be out if it's false? Like, why let it linger be false? And he said something like, a wise man once said nothing at all.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if he did call KD.
If he did, that's a really weak move, just for the record, in case anyone think that I'm trying to defend that move. If he did that, to me, that was
fine.
I have a big problem with that.
It's the era of super teams. I get it.
Yeah,
I'm
these
cool
guys
with that.
all coming up in AAU together. These dudes know each other from like the age of 10.
I understand
whatever.
that. The fact is, look at the way Golden State recruited Kevin Durant all throughout the season.
Yeah.
Very successful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just call homie in the last minute and say, yo, man, you want to come in LA and play with me?
Right.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that didn't work out.
I thought it stumped you twice, too. That's a little, I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. And now, you got a supporting cast of Rondo, Lonzo, Kuzma. You got, what's his name? JaVale McGee.
Mm-hmm.
You got Lance Stevenson, who I actually think is a great pickup for them. Look, Lance, when he plays.
A lot of potential. I like Lance. Lance is my guy. Born ready.
Yeah, exactly. And guys who don't have a conscience and can just play, which is kind of what LeBron needs, right? And he's brought that up in the past, and especially this postseason. Cerebral players.
He needs. See, I don't like that. I don't like when he does that. I have a big problem with. And see, I didn't really want this to become about LeBron.
No, you did. Yes, you did.
I want to focus on kind of the Jordan thing, but yeah, I don't think he protects his teammates enough because.
Thank you.
Being a LeBron James teammate is, like being a police officer today. It's a very thankless job. You screw up a couple times out of every day. Yeah, you're done. It's the biggest news story. People run a protest. You want to get you out of there. It's that bad being LeBron James teammate. Because when they're winning, oh my God, look how amazing LeBron is. Now when they lose, he has no help. You never get any credit for anything, and that's why I think it's a shame of what's happened to Kevin Love. Like
amazing player,
amazing player. Still say no help whatsoever. What was he supposed to do? He's going to get swept. Kevin Love was having like 22 and 13 in like every one of those games.
Dude, who was Kevin Love in Minnesota?
Yeah.
He was like a 20-20 player.
Yeah.
There's a reason you went after him.
He was also about like 20, 30 pounds heavier, though. So he was kind of down low banging a lot more then, too, though. So.
The thing is, look, he's had help, and he's had help of late.
Yeah.
Look, and here's the knock. And this is where a guy like Skip Bayless is 100% right. You got the players that you wanted. This is where Charles Barkley was right last year or 2 years ago. Do you want to play with everybody? Do you want to play with all the best players?
Yeah.
If you're the best, if you're the self-proclaimed best. Look, and even though I don't want to talk about Kawhi, and Kawhi's lost a lot of respect in my books.
Yeah.
The way he's handled himself lately. But look at what Kawhi's done for the Spurs in a couple years. Who's the Spurs' amazing talent?
See, I think, and I'm glad you mentioned that and transitioned that to the Spurs, because I think it's a good idea for what I want to say as well, because I think the coach, highly underrated.
And this is where I give LeBron credit.
It amazes me that no one criticizes Ty Lue for being a bad coach.
Or all the Mike Brown and all the other guys.
Like we talking Jordan, Kobe, Magic, these guys. Who do they have?
Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, Popovich for the Spurs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look what happened when Kobe had those other coaches, right? It's like didn't go so well. And he even had Rudy T for a little bit, right?
Yep.
2-time champion. Nope.
Yeah.
This don't like Phil trashed him in a book. People think, that can't be repaired. Kobe wants to win. So I need Phil Jackson.
Yeah, but now here's a great point. Would LeBron have been trashed by his former coach and then played with him again?
No, I mean, he came back to Dan Gilbert.
Yeah, but
that was pretty bad.
But that's a little bit different, man.
It's pretty bad.
But that's the owner.
Yeah.
But that it's Cleveland. You're really still running the show. What did Dan Gilbert just say last week?
Well, now he wanted to thank him, of course.
He thanked him, but what did he say right before that? He says, if he leaves, at least I'll have my team back.
That's the rumor that he said. We got to think all this is still like rumor. Most of these guys don't really come out and say things. I mean, I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah,
Because he gave the dude all. I mean, you think he wanted to pay Tristan Thompson that money and J.R. Smith that money? I would have gave those guys that money. But you figure, hey, I'm getting to the finals every year. If you think you can win again with this, and no fault of LeBron. I mean, you think he was trying to push to get those guys those contracts and everything when, Kevin Durant was expected to be on the Thunder or maybe even the Wizards, and they just beat Golden State. Golden State was never going to beat them again. They probably would have never beat them if Kevin Love and Kyrie was healthy the first year.
Let me pause right here and let me give LeBron credit in one thing, and I want to use this as a soundbite. Kevin Durant was up 3-1 against the Warriors, and that year the Warriors were 73 win
73.
team? 73 win team that went to the finals, that beat the Bulls record for best record ever, and the Thunder were up 3-1 and they lost. They blew it.
Yeah.
And Durant joined a 73-win team that already made it to the championship, and the year before that won. LeBron James just joined a team that hasn't made didn't make the playoffs in a couple years.
Yeah.
And has no all-star on the team.
Yeah, no
all-star. So, look, I do give LeBron his credit. I just think in the conversation of him versus Michael, just to kind of bring it back, he's not the GOAT, meaning LeBron is not the GOAT.
No way.
And yes, there's different levels to this, and there's different fields or subfields that you can measure a player's talent. Okay, three-point shooting, defensive prowess, hands, foot speed, lateral, basketball IQ, assist to turnover ratio, whatever. I'm willing to give LeBron some categories.
Yeah, I mean, on the basketball court, I don't think there's anything that he can't do.
Right.
I mean, there's also just a certain narrative about him, again, because we're so aware of all these things, and I think people are being shaped
because we're woke.
I just think the media, and that's why I got back to our original conversation of, Jordan and this media. What is the take on people? Like Barry Bonds, baseball. Who's the best supposed to be? Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, or whatever. People who, for the most part, were seen in a favorable light. Barry Bonds, he has the steroid cloud over him, so no one will say he's the best. They don't even look at before we even suspected steroids that he was already a Hall of Famer, the stuff he was doing. To me, Barry Bonds was the greatest ever, but you got the whole steroid cloud, and so they don't look at it. And he was a jerk. He was an absolute jerk to the media. So they didn't like him. He wasn't going to be seen as favorable. They couldn't wait to take him down because he'd been a jerk to them the whole time.
He was the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of the.
He was the Kareem,
baseball.
right? But he wasn't doing more activist stuff. But he was just, as far as just being a jerk and shunning the media, yeah. And I mean, Mike was very nice, dressed to the nines all the time with the suits and stuff. So I think that plays just a role in that image. And that's what I was saying. If we go through his career, if we look at that 6-year mark, having won, eliminated again by the Pistons. All these stats, what is the conversation? You think if we look at what we see from Skip Bayless and them now, because, a little psychology of best predictor of, future behavior is past behavior.
Oh.
So, throw that in there.
Is this on the clock? Am I on the clock right now, man? Are we paying you by the hour?
I don't know, man. We're going to, that bill is racking up right now. I don't take insurance.
You got to pay me. You got to pay me for this equipment, my friend, Studio fee.
Yeah. I guess I'll knock something off of that, But no, I think, if we look at that, though, what do you think, judging how these guys and media judge people now and how we look at people now, what do you say, what's the narrative you think at this 6-year mark, no title, defensive player of the year under his belt, an MVP, all the scoring things and, all the shots, all the first-round exits, what is the narrative?
Sure. Look, if he came in as the self-proclaimed or proclaimed by the media the king, right, before he ever stepped foot in the NBA, yes, I would say that those expectations would have been there, and the media would do what the media does. But we also have to look at it. Look, Kevin Durant didn't win a championship for a certain amount of years. Mm-hmm. Kobe Bryant didn't win a championship.
And they were trying to get there. I think that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that's why he left, because he know that's how people look at people
but
now. Like,
Kobe.
you got to have this ring to be solidified.
Kobe could have left.
He wanted to.
Well, but he didn't want to leave because of...
He was crying to get out of there.
He wanted to go to Chicago, but there was a lot of other issues going on.
Yeah, that team was bad till they were losing.
The front, and again, how much of that was him really wanting to go? Because I know Chicago was in his mind. They made an amazing pitch to him.
Yeah, but they couldn't make a deal without giving up Luau Ding, and he wanted Ding to be there.
And he wound up staying. And he, as he mentioned himself, I finally got my guns, right? When they traded for Paul Gasol, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
The thing is, he stayed. He did it. You're gonna get criticism. I think MJ would have got criticism in the first 6 years, but MJ being MJ, look, man, I think he would have balled out. MJ would have been the equivalent of offensively, even though the skill set is different, what a Kevin Durant or what a James Harden can do offensively, right? Meaning get to the rim, put up those shots. I think he would have been that on offense. Defensively, I think he would have been like a Kawhi Leonard, or even a LeBron James. Even though I think Kawhi is a better defender than LeBron, in my opinion.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think Kawhi is a better on-ball defender.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Kawhi did an excellent job against LeBron in the 2014 finals. Different story, but I think MJ would have rose to the occasion, and he would have been MJ. The thing that also that we can't forget when we make this comparison. I know this is a social media and MJ in the modern times conversation. Michael had a lot of people he had to go through in the 80s and the 90s.
I'm glad you said that. I think there's several things to talk about with that, as far as just things that he did, because I don't want to take away from him being what he was. But just another quick side note, I think that there's a difference in what you can be when people like you and they support you, and you looked at favorably versus when people are negatively criticizing you all the time, what it can do to you from a psychological standpoint and how it can affect your work. But let's just say he continued to be, Michael Jordan and things like you said. There's a bit of a false narrative, which I don't want to admit because, I love Michael Jordan. That was the power of advertisement. I mean, if I saw Mike doing something, I wanted it. Ballpark Franks or something. Let me get that. That's Mike. I saw him with that. The Gatorade.
Smoking a cigar.
Let me get that. I know you want to try to do all these things because Jordan did it. But there's a false narrative that he went through all these people. The people of the 80s. Dr. J and them had already shut down. He never beat Bird. They never beat the Celtics. Back was done. They kind of got old. The Pistons and Isaiah, of course, he's the first one to tell you this because he's a hater. But he said they beat us once. He's like, everybody act like they did something. They beat us one time out of all the stuff. They beat us one time. And then, he got hurt and career was over, shortly after that. So he didn't really go through those. Then you talk about Magic. Yeah, they beat Magic in the finals. They lost game one when Jordan was trying to guard Magic and was getting schooled. He had to make the change to put Scotty on him, which changed the series. Scotty picking him up full court. I mean, Magic still did his thing, but
you're gonna obviously 6'8". You're gonna put a bigger guy on him.
Yeah, James Worthy wasn't there. I don't think people realize that James Worthy was hurt. And you think medically, chances are Magic had HIV already at that time, because he was pretty much retiring that summer. After that, so he didn't even come once the test came out. So he probably already had the HIV at that time. So there wasn't any chance to really get for Magic. Yeah, you managed to beat them in the finals, and you managed to finally beat but those guys were gone. Then the NBA was like that. I think it's Dr. J or something that I think often criticized that when people sometimes talk about Jordan doing so great, and he'd be like, "Oh, you mean the watered down '90s?" So. They kind of the guys from the 80s sometimes look at Jordan's era as watered down, just like guys from that time look at LeBron them era as being watered down.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off that, I mean, I would look at that and say, fine, we can take any LeBron James championship and say, what would they have done against Kobe and Shaq?
Kobe and Shaq could have been against pretty much anybody. Yeah,
right. I mean, and I agree to that. Yeah. Well, I mean, even look, let's be honest. The Kings in their healthy. In a state of health, I think the Kings would have gave him the business. I really do.
Would have gave who?
Any LeBron James team. You're talking. Look,
I don't think the one that beat the 73. I mean, the Kyrie, Kevin Love, or even I actually like the Heat teams a little bit better because, I mean, they were really good defensively.
I feel like they were good on perimeter defense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a skilled big man in the post,
Yeah.
like Tim Duncan, right?
Yeah.
And you have Chris Webber in the post doing his thing, and even Vladi. Vladi was very skilled in facilitating the offense from the post. Again, we're digressing, but the point is, yes, I can see that type of conversation can happen with any era. But what I meant was, look, you had Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning. You had a Knicks team with Xavier Daniels, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, eventually Spreewell and these guys. You know, the Bulls were beating some pretty good teams out east.
Yeah, were they really?
I mean, I think so.
I think, you know what? I take that back. You're right. They were good teams. I think they were good teams. Today you got
and don't think of a super team, right?
Yeah, you had a lot of great players.
Right.
And even that super team thing, maybe it should be just super players because they're not necessarily teams. That's great. Like you're saying, like how you can take one of those teams where you look at, oh, they got these people and put them on that. They weren't great teams. Even most experts and even media people, even though as much as they love Jordan and talk about as unstoppable, they all still say that they don't think those Bulls teams would have touched any of the Celtics or Laker teams in the 80s.
Very possible.
You know, and so there was definitely a team aspect because the guys, we didn't have these supreme talents, that many people on a team. Because you look at the Knicks, I mean, really just Patrick Ewing, who turned out to be a pretty underachiever. I mean,
right.
John Starks, really. Like
no, but as a team, I mean,
yeah.
as a team, they were doing some pretty impressive things. They had chemistry. They were a good team.
And the way the game was, they can be physical and try to slow you
exactly.
down.
And they had grit, you know.
Yeah, which I think that's also a criticism a lot. I think that goes toward LeBron about people saying like, oh, you know, the hand checking era is gone, so I can do that. But I just want people to stop and really think.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah,
like, there's no question about it.
You don't think he would be even more? First of all, he can probably win defensive player
right.
every year
right.
if he
because
was
he's
in the
strong,
handshake.
Quick,
exactly.
Yeah.
How would you be able to score on a dude
right.
like that touching you and
right.
you know? And so I think we have to stop that with the narrative that, oh, he wouldn't be doing this in the handshaking league. Oh, yes, he would. He would probably do even more because then he can be like he can impose his,
right.
you know.
Right.
So the athletes today are bigger, stronger, faster. So they would translate, you know. And then this is only when they play organized ball that you can't touch them. You think growing up in the playgrounds that people weren't getting dirty, putting their hands on it, was letting people, you know, go around like so. I think that, you know, definitely needs to stop. But I agree with you that there were a lot of great teams.
Even look at the Pacers. The Pacers didn't have a lot of great individual talent.
Yeah.
But they were a great team.
Yeah, very cohesive.
Look at the Heat. Yeah. You had Hardaway and you had Alonzo. Who else did you have on that team? Did you have P.J. Brown on that team?
Was he on that one?
I can't remember.
Zoe was a really good player, though.
So, I mean, look, so look, every round mattered, in my opinion, right? In the East, and it's not a discredit to LeBron because it's not his fault.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the first two rounds don't even matter, man. The
yeah.
first two rounds don't even matter, and that's why I credit him going west. I was surprised.
Yeah,
he went out west.
I gave him big credit for that too.
And we'll see. Look, I think I'll give you the final word, but in short, in summary, I think to this day, Michael Jordan is still the greatest, and
better than Kareem.
Look, I can only speak of what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And not highlights or articles that I've read, right?
Yeah.
So obviously Kareem was an amazing talent.
Yeah.
His skyhook was unguardable.
Same amount of titles.
Right.
Probably the same amount of MVPs.
Right.
Kareem don't have more.
Right. And
there's a couple finals Kareem lost, so he has, you know, more wins.
And the other difficult thing is comparing people who play different positions. The reason we can compare Michael and LeBron, who cares? Shooting guard, small forward, it doesn't matter. Right? Ball handler, perimeter defender, it's almost similar in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And if you talk about it in a nuanced way, it's obviously they're different players, but they're not big men, right? They're perimeter players, and they're not point guards, even though LeBron is kind of like a point guard.
Yeah. I do wish they gave that caveat about, you know, the greatest non-bigs.
Sure.
Because it's still a game that filters for height. And,
absolutely.
You know, the bigs are obviously still the way to go.
I mean, that's why a guy like Allen Iverson is praised and, you know, notable because he did what he did as a small guy, right?
Yeah.
So in closing, in summary, what do you have to say about this conversation, this argument? What do you want? Where do you want it to rest?
Well, I mean, I don't know, really. I think, I just want people to kind of look at that. I just think it's fun to look at these things because it's all speculation. I mean, we
Sure.
don't know what's going on. These reports that come out, be from who knows. People just be all over the place. So we all just speculate and fun. But I just think that people should just take a look and think that, especially the people who dislike LeBron James, these are likely the same people who disliked Kobe Bryant when I was one of the only Kobe Bryant fans. I think people forget that they hated Kobe Bryant.
I remember you were big.
No, he think he's Michael Jordan and all that. Like, he was the hated guy at first until LeBron became the villain.
I hated him.
Yeah.
I hated him until him and Shaq broke up.
Yeah.
And then when they seemed vulnerable and not as invincible, because I was a Spurs fan.
Yeah, I was going to say, they was out of the Spurs way then at that point.
So, and then I started appreciating the Mamba.
Yeah, and as I said, people start appreciating them, and now it's like Kobe's this godfather of the league that everyone loves the advice that he has to say.
Yeah.
And LeBron probably be appreciated more after he's gone.
I think he's starting to get appreciated.
Yeah.
You
appreciated more after he's gone. And then even after that, and then the next step is moving on. That's another Drake lyric. Think about that. But no, I think that to think about like the people that dislike LeBron James, where are you getting your stories from? Think about what they say. It's likely came directly from Skip Bayless. He's shrinking the moment. Collapse. He's not clutch. All those things. Really think about Michael Jordan's career and what it will look like again. Having won with all the accolades and all the gunning and shooting, 6 years into the league, what would you have said? The stories about Bill Cartwright and I want to give the team the ball and don't pass it to him. Even the stuff with Jerry Krause we didn't even really get into about the front office. Like, look at Kawhi and these teams that have beef with their front office and what their players say, and all the media reports would have been there. Would he even stayed in Chicago his whole career with, all that problem? And then some people even said that he got his body ready for baseball a year before, knowing that he was probably already going to go there and quit. So then what would those stories have been? Like Trey Bay, Phil Jackson, who's always been vocal, he destroyed Melo on the social media. He had to wait to a book for Kobe Bryant thing, but you can talk to him directly in social media, get the quote sooner. Tex Winter and them had a lot of problems with Jordan gunning and being selfish. So I just think a lot of that would have came out, and Mike being, hey, well, this is my way and we can do it. Y'all got a problem with it. And then the front offices had a lot more power than moving disgruntled players. And as far as your advertisement, I just think that we'd have probably been looking at this guy different. And it not would have been, so lovable thing where he's just this untouchable guy right now. So just, think about that. And even if Kareem was nice to the media and people looked at him favorably, what would his story be with all his accolades? The guy dominated. Did he even lose in college?
I'm not sure.
So 4 years, and I don't even know if he lost in college. So I just think that, just think about that. Where are we getting the stories from? Just be critical thinkers.
I like that.
Really what it comes down to.
So it all goes back to higher education.
That's what I think we should leave people with. Just critically think. Ask yourself, where are you getting your ideas from? Is it really your values? And look at the people that we say are the greats in these sports. What has been their narrative? How have they been looked at in the media? There's no great that has been looked at unfavorably in the media in all the sports. Again, besides Muhammad Ali, but then he became the most beloved person ever when people saw that he was right. So just ask yourself that. All
right. Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Ronnie Doss. It's a pleasure as always.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
WalaWay listeners, chime in, like and subscribe, and leave your comments. What would have Michael Jordan have looked like in today's age, in the era of social media? And just chime in about LeBron versus MJ. What do you guys think? Thanks for listening, and tune in next time.